In the dark shadows, in the white cold, fearlessly we search for knowledge new and old. We drink the strong spirits and read ancient tomes, the order of the Abercast. We are the brave and bold.
Stigmata Studios presents The Jinn Jihad. The Jinn Jihad kicks your face with myths, mysteries, epic battles, suicide bombers, quirky characters, and divine power armor. In this epic graphic novel, the warrior archangels descend on a city in chaos. It's all-out war. The non-standard assembly battles an ancient terrorist organization and their ultimate weapon, the corrupted, magically enhanced, unstoppable monster, the Jinn. This graphic novel is a wild ride. It's one part distant Arab myth, one part Old Testament angelic vengeance, and one part unique heroic tough guys. Available on Amazon. Get more info on the Jinn Jihad and other titles at stigmatastudios.com.
In its determination to secure a nuclear deal with Iran, the Obama administration derailed an ambitious law enforcement campaign targeting drug trafficking by the Iranian-backed terrorist group Hezbollah, even as it was funneling cocaine into the United States, according to a Politico investigation.
The Abercast. Occult. History. Conspiracy. Violence.
All right, welcome to the Abercast. I'm John. I'm your home slice, John Towers. Before we get rocking and rolling, just want to point out that the Patreon patreon.com/Abercast is out there. Got some great tiers available and ready to get started. I can't wait to get these mason jars made with the oath. It's going to be so sweet. I actually might just order one for me tonight. Anyhow, the big goal right now on the Patreon is I want to get a book campaign together for soldiers who are overseas. So if you're interested in that, go ahead and check out patreon.com/Abercast. Please support the show, rate and review on iTunes. Check out stigmatastudios.com, our newly redesigned. I guess I could stop saying that it's newly redesigned by now. It's over a month. Our website, stigmatastudios.com. You can also go to abercast.com. It's got its own the podcast has its own little section on the website, and I got abercast.com to make it fucking easy for everybody. At the bottom of all the pages on the website, there are links to my social media accounts. Please feel free to find me and yell at me and bitch at me. And I gotta tell you, like, I really need to bring some energy tonight because I'm pretty depressed. I just found out that Disney turned Lando Calrissian into a gay. I'm like, you got suave, pimped out, coolest black guy in a galaxy far, far away, and then you make him into a gay dude. Well, they call it pansexual. I don't know what that means. It's a term that came up after Captain Jack Harkness in Doctor Who came out, and he was like, I'm a pansexual, like I'll fuck anything. So I guess that means like Orlando was trying to fuck his robots or something. You know, I don't know what it is. And it's like, you come at me and you're like, it's not gay, it's pansexual. He'll have sex with anything. And I defer to this question. This question, I defer to Andrew Dice Clay, who says, you either suck dick or you don't. So there's my 80s Neanderthal binary toxic masculinity point of view on the whole fucking thing. Lando's not gay. Imagine what they're doing right now at the Colt 45 headquarters. They're like, they've sold metric tons of shitty malt liquor, beer, using the smoothest ladies' man in a galaxy far, far away as a spokesperson. And now they're like, oh, well, you can get a blowjob too, I guess. All right, so enough of that. I'm sorry for railing about this fucking thing. Okay, oh yeah, we're going to do a podcast. We're talking about conspiracies tonight. And who doesn't love a good conspiracy theory? Or conspiracy in this point. We're drawn to these stories of the little guy, everyday people subjugated to and having to deal with the consequences of the dark, secret, shadowy actions driven by sinister puppet masters working undetected behind the scenes. We all know what it's like looking through time at giant unexpected events and almost being able to see the undetectable lines stretching from one terrible deed to the invisible cabal pulling the strings to enact their imperceptible plan. Tonight, we're looking at a conspiracy just like this. You know, in a world populated with... Oh, I'm not even going to fucking say that. This story it's amazing. It's dealing with a global terrorist organization. It's dealing with real life supervillains. If the fucking guys that we're going to be talking tonight were in a Captain America movie, they would be supervillains. We got a secret, super secret special law enforcement project going on. I mean, this is literally a superhero movie. It's a lot like Avengers because the bad guy wins at the end. We are going... Okay, so before I get going any further on this, I need to just say real quick that tonight I want you to get your mason jar and fill it full of ice. Put a lime slice in there. And take 2 shots of the shittiest gin you could find and pour it in that glass. Fill the rest of it up with tonic water, my friends. And sit back and get ready. enjoy your Jin Jihad. Because tonight we're going to get into a thwarted investigation into a ruthless terrorist organization, a global plot to run drugs, launder billions of dollars, and to fund Muslim jihadists. And the plot to derail the whole damn thing with orders that come straight from the top. Tonight, we're going to talk about how and why Obama let Hezbollah go scot-free. This isn't some alt-right website. I've downloaded, I've printed out this gigantic article from Politico.com. It's from a guy named Josh Meyer. And this article is called The Secret Backstory of How Obama Let Hezbollah Off the Hook. An ambitious U.S. task force targeting Hezbollah's billion-dollar criminal enterprise ran headlong into the White House's desire for a nuclear deal with Iran. So I found this while I was researching last week's show. So this is kind of like, it's not about media manipulation like last week's show, but I felt like it was a nice companion piece to go along with. So just like last week's show, we're going to get into this story, and it's going to sound an awful lot like politics at first, but you just couch it in this story that it's this is the Captain America move, the one where they had to blow up S.H.I.E.L.D. Because it was full of bad guys. It's a lot like that, except it doesn't have Robert Redford in it. It doesn't have Butch Cassidy in it. So that's the way I want you guys to think about this as I'm plotting through this article. It's just like a fucking James Bond movie. It's like a Mission Impossible movie. You know, like how every single fucking Mission Impossible movie, they're like, oh yeah, we have a mole. Oh yeah, our government's actually evil and we don't know why they're sending us on these missions. We're being set up. Think of this as a Mission Impossible movie, this story, as I go through it. Oh, Jihad me. Gesundheit. A global threat emerges. How Hezbollah turned to traffic cocaine and laundering money through used cars to finance its expansion. In its determination to secure a nuclear deal with Iran, the Obama administration derailed an ambitious law enforcement campaign targeting drug trafficking by the Iranian-backed terrorist group Hezbollah, even as it was funneling cocaine into the United States, according to a Politico investigation. The campaign, dubbed Project Cassandra, was launched in 2008. After the Drug Enforcement Administration amassed evidence that Hezbollah had transformed itself from a Middle East-focused military and political organization into an international crime syndicate that some investigators believed were collecting $1 billion a year from drug and weapons trafficking, money laundering, and other criminal activities. Read slavery. Human trafficking. I'm sorry, that's the trendy word for it nowadays. Over the next 8 years, agents working out of a top-secret DEA facility in Chantilly, Virginia, used wiretaps, undercover operations, and informants to map Hezbollah's illicit network with the help of 30 U.S. and foreign agencies. They followed cocaine shipments from Latin America to West Africa and onto Europe and the Middle East. and others through Venezuela and Mexico to the United States. So this is okay. So all right, this is dense, and literally there's like 100 fucking pages of this article. But just I just want to keep it. I want to build this picture for you as I'm going through this. So we're talking about a criminal organization, global criminal organization, that traffics in weapons, traffics in people, launders money, traffics in drugs, and other criminal activities. So they have this infrastructure to get stuff around the world without being detected already in place. It's already there. From Latin America to West Africa to Europe to the Middle East, through others through Venezuela, Mexico, into the United States. So look, this is an importer exporter. This is like Cobra without the cool tanks, without the cool robots, without that cool mirrored helmet. They followed cocaine shipments, tracked a river of dirty cash, and traced what they believed to be the innermost circle of Hezbollah and its state sponsors in Iran. But as the Project Cassandra reached higher into the hierarchy of this conspiracy, Obama administration officials threw an increasingly insurmountable series of roadblocks in its way, according to interviews with dozens of participants who in many cases spoke for the first time about these events shrouded in secrecy, and review the government documents and court records when Project Cassandra leaders sought approval for some significant investigations, prosecutions, arrests, and financial sanctions. Officials at the Justice and Treasury Departments delayed, hindered, and rejected their requests. The DOJ declined requests by Project Cassandra and other authorities to file criminal charges against major players such as Hezbollah's high-profile envoy to Iran, a Lebanese bank that allegedly laundered billions in alleged drug profits, and central player in a U.S.-based cell of the Iranian paramilitary. The DOJ declined requests by Project Cassandra and other authorities to file criminal charges against U.S.-based cell of the Iranian paramilitary Quds Force. There's a U.S.-based cell of paramilitary Iranians, and the DOJ declined requests to file criminal charges against them. I mean, I've just said that 3 times in 3 different ways. Is it crazy? Yes. Is it? Yes, it is. This is fucking bananas. The State Department rejected requests to lure high-value targets to countries where they could be arrested. Quote, there was a policy decision. It was a symptomatic decision, said David Asher, who helped establish and oversee Project Cassandra as a Defense Department illicit financial analyst. Again, quote, they serially ripped apart this entire effort that was well supported and resourced and was done from the top down. It was done from the top down. The untold story of Project Cassandra illustrates the immense difficulty in mapping and countering illicit networks in an age where global terrorism, drug trafficking, and organized crime have emerged, but also to the extent to which competing agendas among government agencies like the Swamp and shifting priorities at the highest level can set back years of progress. And while the pursuit may be shadowed in secrecy, from Latin American luxury hotels to car parks in Africa to the banks and battlefields of the Middle East, the impact is not, in this case, multi-ton loads of cocaine entering the United States. And hundreds of millions of dollars going to a U.S. designated terrorist organization with a vast reach. Obama had entered office in 2009, promising to improve relations with Iran as part of the broader rapprochement with the Muslim world. Remember when he repurposed NASA? He was like, NASA's real job is to make Muslims feel like they've made some scientific advances.
So they're pointing out here that he had a broader rapprochement to be supine to the Muslim world. On the campaign trail, he had asserted repeatedly that the Bush administration's policy of pressuring Iran to stop its illicit nuclear program wasn't working, and that he would reach out to Tehran to reduce tensions. This is how tensions are reduced. No, bro. You know this this global criminal organization that you're funding? Yeah, just go ahead and do whatever you want. We'll be over here looking the other way. I'll call my peeps off. In May 2010, Brennan, then assistant of the president for Homeland Security and Counterterrorism, confirmed in a speech that the administration was looking for ways to build, quote, moderate elements, unquote, within Hezbollah. This is a thing. This is I get sick. I fucking get sick of saying it. This is people that don't understand the enemy. They don't understand the enemy. Quote, Hezbollah is a very interesting organization, Brennan told Washington Conference, saying it had evolved from purely a terrorist organization to a militia and ultimately a political party with representatives in the Lebanese parliament and cabinet, according to a Rutgers report. There is certain the elements of Hezbollah that are truly a concern to us and what they are doing, Brennan said. And what we need to do is to find ways to diminish their influence within the organization and try to build up more moderate elements. Again, this is a guy who does not understand the enemy. And you could be like, what do you know? You're just a writer and a fucking comic book guy. You're not a foreign policy expert. You're not a global terrorism expert. You're not a... I don't even know. Homeland Security advisor to the president. That's right. I am none of those things. I am just a writer with a podcast. What do I know? But... I think that I understand Hezbollah better than John Brennan. That's what I'm saying. He's a guy who doesn't understand the enemy, and he works for a fucking administration that doesn't understand the enemy. In practice, the administration's willingness to envision a new role for Hezbollah in the Middle East, combined with its desire for a negotiated settlement in Iran's nuclear program, translated into a reluctance to move aggressively against the top Hezbollah operatives, according to Project Cassandra members and others. Lebanese arms dealer Ali Fayyad, a suspected top Hezbollah operative whom agents believed reported to Russia's President Vladimir Putin as a key supplier of weapons to Syria and Iraq, was arrested in Prague in the spring of 2014, but for the nearly 2 years Fayyad was in custody, top Obama administration officials declined to apply serious pressure on the Czech government to extradite into the United States. Even Putin was lobbying against it aggressively. So they scoop up this Iranian. Putin's like, hey, no matter what you do, do not send that guy to America. And they're like, I don't know what we should do. The Czechs are like, I don't know what we should do. I wonder what America thinks we should do. Vladimir Putin's like, whatever they tell you to do, don't extradite the guy. And then over here in America, it's like, whew, a fucking tumbleweed rolls across the fucking desert plains. There's fucking crickets going on in the background. Fayyad, who had been indicted in U.S. courts on charges of planning the murder of U.S. government employees, attempting to provide material support to a terrorist organization, and attempting to acquire, transfer, and use anti-aircraft missiles. These are those Stinger missiles that were lost. It was ultimately sent to Beirut He's now believed by U.S. officials to be back in business and helping to arm militants in Syria and elsewhere with Russian heavy weapons. The Cassandra members say administration officials also blocked to undermine their efforts to go after top Hezbollah operatives, including one nicknamed the Ghost, allowing them to remain active despite being under sealed U.S. indictment for years. People familiar with this case say the Ghost has been one of the world's biggest cocaine traffickers, including to the U.S., as well as a major supplier of conventional and chemical weapons for use by Syrian President Bashar Assad against his people. Remember the big red line? Remember the... It's not big. Remember the feminine red line. The famous Obama's famous feminine red line. Petite. Remember his petite red line. When the Project Cassandra agents and other investigators sought repeatedly to investigate and prosecute Abdallah Safieddin, Hezbollah's longtime envoy to Iran, whom they considered to be the linchpin of Hezbollah's criminal network, the Justice Department refused. DOJ refused, according to 4 former officials with direct knowledge of the cases. The administration also rejected repeated efforts by Project Cassandra members to charge Hezbollah's military wing as an ongoing criminal enterprise under federal mafia-style racketeering statutes. Task force members say, and they allege that the administration officials declined to designate Hezbollah as a significant transnational criminal organization and blocked other strategic initiatives that would have given the task force additional legal tools, money, and manpower to fight it. Well, this all just sounds terrible. Former Obama administration's officials declined to comment on individual cases, but noted that the State Department condemned the Czech's decision not to hand over Fayyad. Several of them, speaking on conditions of anonymity, said that they were guided by broader policy objectives, including de-escalating the conflict with Iran, curbing its nuclear weapons program, and freeing at least 4 American prisoners held by Tehran. That only cost us $1.7 billion. And that some law enforcement efforts were undoubtedly constrained by these concerns. So that whole paragraph really just said, we were really compliant. We really just didn't want to anger Iran. We didn't want to piss anybody off. We were trying to be... we were using the conflict management skills we learned in middle school. But the former officials denied that they derailed any actions against Hezbollah or its Iranian allies for political reasons. Quote, there's been a consistent pattern of actions taken against Hezbollah, both through tough sanctions and law enforcement actions before and after the Iran deal, said Kevin Lewis, an Obama spokesman. I don't want to assume Kevin's gender. Said Kevin Lewis, an Obama spokesperson who worked at both the White House and the Justice Department in the administration. Lewis, speaking for the Obama administration, provided a list of 8 arrests and prosecutions as proof, and he made a special note of February 2016 operation in which European authorities arrested an undisclosed number of alleged members of a special Hezbollah business affairs unit that the DEA says oversees its drug trafficking and other criminal money-making enterprises. Project Cassandra officials, however, noted that the European arrests occurred after the negotiations with Iran were over. Again, the administration was using its conflict resolution training that it had in middle school. Like, my conflict resolution training that I received in middle school, it really came in handy, literally. The whole Obama administration's millennials, I guess. The Justice Department, they pointed out, never filed corresponding U.S. criminal charges against the suspects arrested in Europe, including one prominent Lebanese businessman formerly designated by the Treasury Department for using his direct ties to Hezbollah, commercial and terrorist elements, to launder bulk shipments of illicit cash for the organization throughout Asia, Europe, and the Middle East. Former National Security Advisor of the Obama administration, who played a role in the Iran nuclear negotiations, suggested that Project Cassandra members were merely speculating that their case were being blocked for political reasons. The Project Cassandra members were merely speculating that their cases were being blocked for political reasons. Other factors included a lack of evidence or concern about interfering with intelligence operations that could have been in play. What if the CIA or the Mossad had an intelligence operation going on inside Hezbollah, and they were trying to pursue someone against whom had impeccable intelligence collection at the DEA is not going to know that, the official said. I get the feeling people who don't know what's going on in the broader universe is grasping at straws. The official added, the world is a lot more complicated and viewed through the narrow lens of drug trafficking. So you're not going to let the CIA rule the roost, but you're also certainly not going to let the DEA do it either. Your approach for anything as complicated as Hezbollah is going to have to evolve the interagency process, because the State Department has a piece of the pie. The intelligence community does, Treasury does, DOD does. I mean, what do I mean? That's what I mean. What do you mean? That's what I mean. That's what I mean. Sorry about that. Back to this article. Just a reminder, the article we're talking about is called The Secret Backstory of How Obama Let Hezbollah Off the Hook, an ambitious U.S. task force targeting Hezbollah's billion-dollar criminal enterprise ran headlong into the White House's desire for a nuclear deal with Iran. From Politico, from a guy named Josh Meyer. This is dense. There's no way I'm going to be able to get through this whole thing. So I will put a link. Of course, I'll put a link in the show notes. If you're interested, I suggest everyone read this because it's fascinating. The closer we got to the Iran deal, the more these activities went away, Asher said. So much of the capability, whether it was special operations, whether it was law enforcement, whether it was treasury designations, even the capacity, the personnel assigned to this mission was studiously drained, almost to the last drop by the end of the Obama administration. With much fanfare, Obama announced in the final agreement on implementation of the Iran deal on January 17th, 2016. We know this because we talked about it last week, in which Tehran promised to shelve efforts to build a nuclear weapons program in exchange for being released from crippling international economic sanctions. Within months, the task force officials said Project Cassandra was all but dead. Some of its most senior officials, including Jack Kelly of the veteran DEA supervisory agent who created and led the task force, were transferred to other assignments, and Asher himself left the task force long before that, after the Defense Department said his contract would not be renewed. As a result, the U.S. government lost insight into not only the drug trafficking but other criminal activities worldwide. When you read other criminal activities, what you should think of is human trafficking. What you should think of is weapons trafficking, traditional weapons, and chemical weapons. But also into Hezbollah's illicit conspiracies with top officials in the Iranian, Syrian, this is really interesting, Venezuelan, and Russian governments, all the way up to President Nicolo Muradu, Assad, and Putin. According to former task force members and other current and former U.S. officials. Skipping down a little bit, they were a paramilitary organization with strategic importance in the Middle East, and we watched them become an international criminal conglomerate, gathering billions of dollars for the world's most dangerous activities. Here goes, including chemical and nuclear weapons programs and armies that believe America is their sworn enemy. Said Kelly. Remember when I said that these Brennan and the administration does not understand their enemy? This is it. You're not going to find moderates in an army of people who are generating billions of dollars for the world's most dangerous activities, including chemical and nuclear weapons programs, and armies that believe America is their sworn enemy. You are not going to find a moderate element in there. They're violating U.S. statutes, he said. Why can't we bring them to justice? Because your boss said don't. Because your boss doesn't. Because your boss is using his middle school conflict resolution skills that he learned in middle school. All right, so here's a real world example. It's easy to lose sight of billions of dollars in African car parks and drugs and running weapons and nuclear weapons programs. But listen to this. I have somebody in my family that could have been directly involved. Well, no, I mean, not really, but shit. Okay. Meanwhile, in Iraq, the U.S. military was probing the role of Iran in outfitting Shiite militias with high-tech improvised explosive devices known as explosively formed penetrators, or EFPs, that had already killed hundreds of U.S. soldiers. Nope, don't worry about it, bros. Go ahead. Forget about it. We're not going to be investigating you for that anymore. We're not going to be trying to stop you for that anymore. Go ahead and blow up more of our fucking people. It's fine. Here's another interesting one. Here's another interesting bit. Over the next 25 years, it's not 25 years from 2006 or whatever, or 2016 or whatever. They're going through a brief history of Hezbollah. And I imagine that you know who Hezbollah is. If not, just fucking Wikipedia it or whatever. But this is an interesting part. Over the next 25 years, Iran's financial and military support for Hezbollah enabled it to amass an army with tens of thousands of foot soldiers, more heavy armaments than most nation states, and approximately 120,000 rockets and ballistic missiles that could strike Israel and the U.S. interests in the regions with devastating precision. I mentioned earlier about the missing Stinger missiles, and that's this. Hezbollah became an expert in soft power. That's what Lando Calrissian has. He's like, hey, well, hey now, what have we here? Some soft power? No, I'm sure Lando is virulent. He doesn't have soft power. But you know, when that news dropped, then you're like, oh, now I realize why he had that fish dude as a co-pilot on the Millennium Falcon in Return of the Jedi. Nine numb. Hezbollah became an expert in soft power as well. It provided food, medical care, and other social services for starving refugees in war-torn Lebanon. So soft power, if you don't know, is a logistics term. It's the heart. It's like it's a function of logistics, but it's the heart and mind doctrine, I guess, is the best way to put it. If that pretty much explains it. By funding terrorism and military operations through global drug trafficking and organized crime, business affairs unit within Islamic Jihad had become the embodiment of the kind of threat the United States was struggling to address in a post 9/11 world. The DEA believed that it was a logical U.S. national security agency to lead the interagency effort to blah, blah, blah. All right, we're just going to touch into part 2 here. It's entitled Everywhere and Nowhere from its headquarters in the Middle East. Hezbollah extends its criminal reaches into Latin America, Africa, and the United States. I'm not going to spend a lot of time in this section. I mean, this is dense, bro. There's no way I could get through it in an hour. Or even in about an hour. I just can't. I got a conflict resolute with it. It's too big, bro. For all the soft... It's too big for the soft power. Maybe next week we'll get back to magic. They take that a little bit more seriously, I think. February 12th, 2008, CIA and Israeli intelligence detonated a bomb in this guy. They've been talking about it. I skipped over a lot of it. Mughaniya's car as he was leaving a celebration on the 29th anniversary of the Iranian revolution in Damascus, Syria. He was killed instantly. It was a major blow to Hezbollah. But soon after, wiretap phone lines and other U.S. evidence showed that the criminal operation was busier than ever. And overseen by 2 trusted associates, according to the interviews with former Project Cassandra officials in DEA documents. The Colombians and Venezuela investigations linked him to numerous international drug smuggling and money laundering networks, and especially to one of the biggest the DEA had ever seen, led by the Medellin-based Lebanese businessman A.M. Juma. Juma's network rang alarm bells in Washington when agents discovered he was working with Mexico's brutal Los Zetas cartel to move multi-ton loads of cocaine directly into the United States and washing $200 million a month in criminal proceeds with the help of 300 or so used car dealerships in the networks. The network would funnel huge amounts of money to the dealerships to purchase used cars, which would be then shipped to Benin on Africa's west coast. As the task force investigators intensified their focus on Safadini, they were contracted out of the blue by Asher and the Defense Department official who was at the Special Operations Command, tracking the money used to provide ragtail Iraqi Shiite militias. Do you guys know what Shiite is? Do you know the difference between the Shiites Oh, maybe we'll get into that. Maybe I need a big Muslim episode coming up. Maybe that's what I'll do. God. Sophisticated weapons for use against U.S. troops, including the new and lethal IED known as what we already talked about this, the explosively formed penetrator. That's Lando Calrissian's new name. It's not soft power, Lando soft power Calrissian. It's Lando explosively formed penetrator Calrissian, the pansexual. The armor-piercing charges were so powerful they were ripping M1 Abram tanks in half. I find that hard to believe. I have a little bit of experience with M1 Abram tanks, and I don't believe that at all. I could be wrong. Bradleys, maybe. APCs for M113s for sure. Trucks, yes. Humvees, yes. I'm not so sure about these M1 Abrams tanks. I would like to point out that you might like to refer back to the Battle of 73 Easting episodes, where I get into M1 tanks a little. A little. Nobody has seen weapons like these, Asher told Politico. They could blow the sides off a building. That's probably also true. But depleted uranium is a totally different thing, bro. Asher's curiosity has been piqued by evidence leaking the IED network to phone numbers intercepted in the Columbia investigation. Before long, he traced the usual alliance to a number allegedly used by Saddam Hussein in Iran. Hey, I think I did that pretty good. Saddam Hussein. I had no clue who he was, Asher recalled, but this guy was sending money to Iraq to kill American soldiers. I had no clue who he was, but the guy was sending money to Iraq to kill American soldiers. Why did they just print that twice? I didn't read it twice. I read two separate lines that just happened to be the same. I don't know. Fuck, that's probably my fault. Alright, skipping down a little bit. Hezbollah operates like the Gambino crime family on steroids. And he is its John Gotti, said Kelly, referring to the infamous Teflon Don crime boss who for decades eluded justice. Whatever Iran needs, Sarafin is in charge of getting it for them. The Bush administration had made disrupting the networks through which Iran obtained parts for its weapons of mass destruction programs a top priority, with then Deputy National Security Advisor Hawan Zerat personally overseeing an interagency effort to map out the procurement channels. A former Justice Department prosecutor, Zerat, understood the value of international law enforcement operations and put the DEA's Special Operation Division at the center of it. But even then, other agencies were chafing at the DEA's role. So I'm gonna go ahead and skip ahead. Like, we'll just say goodbye for now. If you guys want to wait, if you guys want to get it through this block of commercials and stuff, we'll wrap up on the other end. But if this is it, if this is where we part ways, my friends, I would just like to ask you guys to rate and review on iTunes. I'd like to ask you guys to consider the Patreon account. I would ask you guys to check out the website, stigmatastudios.com or abercast.com. Find the links to the social media and hit me up. What do you guys think about this? Do you guys buy this? Is this out of left field? Like, do you think this is just some right-wing conspiracy theory? Do you think that an all-consumed Barack Obama wanting to cement his foreign policy would wave off law enforcement officials and intelligence agencies to not, you don't want to make Iran angry? Do you think that's possible? Do you buy this? Do you think that this is the case? Or do you think this is just some right-wing lunacy? I want to hear from you. I want to know what you have to say about this. I want to know what you think about it. And also, I want to know if you're interested in reading the whole article, which is huge and dense, and I'm barely touching on it. So, if this is where we part ways, my friend, I love you. Thank you so much for clicking in and listening to me babble about things that I care about passionately. And I will see you next week when I don't know what the topic's going to be. I have to consult the oracle, but, thank you so much for listening. I value you and all that you do. All right. If you guys hang in, I will talk to you on the other side of this. If not, sayonara. Now it's time for us to say sayonara. Do 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 do. I was watching MASH earlier. I think that's where that came from. All right, jump into part 3. Thank you guys for hanging in, by the way. If you did actually hang in. Part 3. A battle against enemies near and far as negotiations for the Iran nuclear deal intensify. The administration pushes back against Project Cassandra. More than a year into Obama's second term, many national security officials still disagreed with Kelly and Asher about whether Hezbollah fully controlled a global criminal network, especially in drug trafficking and distribution, or merely profited from crimes by its supporters within the global Lebanese diaspora. Project Cassandra's years of relentless investigation had produced a wealth of evidence about Hezbollah's global operations, a clear window into how its hierarchy worked, and some significant sanctions by the Treasury Department. A confident DEA assessment from the period concluded that Hezbollah's business affairs entity has, quote, has leveraged relationships with corrupt foreign government officials and transnational criminal actors, creating a network that can be utilized to move metric ton quantities of cocaine, launder drug proceeds on a global scale, and procure weapons and precursors for explosives. Hezbollah's network moved, quote, metric. Why does it keep doing this? It just keeps repeating the last line. It's so crazy. Hezbollah has, quote, has at his disposal one of the most capable networks of actors, coalescing elements in transnational organized crime and terrorism in the world, the assessment concludes. A top U.S. military official shared some of these concerns, including the 4-star generals heading the U.S. Special Operations and Southern Commands, who warned Congress that Hezbollah criminal operations and growing beachheads in Latin America posed as urgent threats to the U.S. Security, according to the transcripts of the hearings. In early 2014, Kelly and other task force members briefed Attorney General Eric Holder, who was so alarmed by the findings, he insisted Obama and his entire national security team get the same briefing as they formulated the administration's Iranian strategy. So that worked real well. Eric Holder. Joke. As a result, task force members claim Project Cassandra was increasingly viewed as a threat to the administration's efforts to secure a nuclear deal and the top secret prisoner swap that was about to be negotiated. Monaco's former subordinate, speaking on a condition of anonymity, said the White House did not attempt to curb DEA-led efforts against Hezbollah because of the Iran deal. But the subordinate said the White House felt a need to balance the drug agency's interest with those of other agencies who often disagreed with it. The intelligence community fundamentally doubted the intel from the DEA, the subordinate recalled. I spent so much time trying to get them to work together. Nonetheless, Nonetheless, after the meeting in Tampa, administration made it clear that it would not support a RICO case. Even though Asher and the others said that they spent years gathering evidence for it, the task force members said, all right, here we go. We're going to get into the belly of this beast. Willfully blind to the threat. After the Tampa meeting, Project Cassandra leaders pushed unsuccessfully, they said, for a greater support from the Obama administration into extraditing Fayed from Czech Republic. Remember this from the beginning of the episode. To New York from prosecution in locating and arresting the many high-value targets who went underground after hearing news of his arrest. They also struck out repeatedly, they said, in obtaining the administration's approval for offering multi-million-dollar reward, quote, rewards for justice, unquote, bounties of a type commonly issued for indicted kingpins like Juma. Remember we talked about Juma earlier, and for administrations to unseal secret indictments of others like the Ghost. Remember, we talked about earlier, the Ghost, to improve the chances of catching them. The task force officials pushed the Obama team also unsuccessfully to use U.S. aid money and weapon sales as leverage to push Lebanon into adapting an extradition treaty and handing over all of the indicted Hezbollah suspects living openly in the country. They said, there were ways of getting these guys if they would let us, Kelly said. Frustrated, he wrote another of his emails to DEA leaders in July 2014 asking for help. The email stated that the used car money laundering scheme was flourishing in the United States and Africa. The number of vehicles being shipped to Benin had more than doubled from December 2011 to 2014, he wrote, with one dealership alone receiving more than $4 million. And despite the DEA's creation of a multi-agency Iran Hezbollah super facilitator initiative, they need help with naming these fucking things. That's what I think. The Iran Hezbollah super facilitator initiative? In 2013, Kelly said the only department, Homeland Security, Customs, and Border Protection, was sharing information and resources. The FBI and other parts of the USG, that's the U.S. government, provided a little or no assistance during our investigation. Kelly wrote in the email, the USG, the U.S. government, lack of action in this issue has allowed Hezbollah to become one of the biggest transnational organized crime groups in the world. Douglas Farah, a transnational crime analyst, said he tried to raise the Project Cassandra investigation with Obama officials in order to corroborate his own on-the-ground research without success. Quote, when it looked like the nuclear agreement might actually happen, it became clear that there were no interest in dealing with anything about Iran or Hezbollah. On the ground, that it might be negative and it might scare off the Iranians. That should be a pull quote. That should be like the lead thing. Asher, meanwhile, said that the others began hearing, quote, from multiple people involved in the Iran discussions, that is, Hezbollah stuff was definitely getting in the way of a successful negotiation. He said one Obama national security official even said so explicitly in the same State Department meeting in which he boasted about how the administration was bringing together a board of coalition in the Middle East, including Hezbollah, to fight the Islamic State terrorist group, Asher recalled. Delusional. It's all delusional. It's delusional. The fucking... They don't understand it. There's still like 50 pages of this thing. I don't know how far I'm going to go. The nuclear negotiations were on their own, he told reporters. They were standing separate from everything else, and no discussion has ever been taken place about linking one thing to another. All right, here we go. Here's another good one. But even some of the former CIA officials said the negotiations were affecting their dealings in the Middle East and those of the DEA. DEA operatives in the Middle East were shut down repeatedly due to political sensitivities, especially in Lebanon. I don't know much about Lebanon. I know I know that Corporal Klinger from MASH was a Lebanese American. That's what I knew. And he, like Muhammad, also liked to wear dresses. Maybe I'll do an episode on that. Maybe I'll do an episode on trans Muhammad. According to one former CIA officer working in the region, he said pressure from the White House also prompted the CIA to declare, quote, a moratorium, unquote, to cover covert. Oh God, I fucked this all up. According to one former CIA officer working in the region, he said pressure from the White House also prompted the CIA to declare a moratorium to covert operations against Hezbollah in Lebanon too, for a time after the administration received complaints from Iranian negotiators. Quote, during the negotiations, early on, the Iranians said, listen, we need you to lay off the Hezbollah to tamp down the pressure on them, and the Obama administration acquiesced to that request. The former CIA officer told Politico, quote, it was a strategic decision to show good faith towards the Iranians in terms of reaching an agreement. The Obama team, quote, really wanted this deal. Unquote, the former official said. So the whole time this last two paragraphs, I'm like, maybe I should lay off of this millennial thing. And then I got to this, that last line. Really wanted the deal? No sane person says really. Why don't you just say like ultimate really? Super really wanted the deal. They super really wanted the deal. Ugh. As a result, we were making concessions that had never been made before. Just like mayonnaise, mustard, and ketchup. Just like mayonnaise on French fries in Germany. Which is outrageous to anyone in the agency, the former intelligence officer said, adding that the orders from Washington especially infuriated CIA officers in the field who knew that Hezbollah was, quote, still doing assassinations and other terrorist activities, unquote. The allegation was contested vehemently by former senior Obama national security officials who played a role in the Iran nuclear negotiations. That the Iranians would ask for a favor in this realm and that we would acquiesce is ludicrous, he said. It's ludicrous? Nonetheless, feeling that he had few options left, Asher went public with his concerns at a congressional hearing in May 2015, saying the Department of Justice should seek to indict and prosecute Hezbollah's Islamic Jihad organization as an international conspiracy using the RICO statute. Now, this has come up a few times just in the hour or so that we've been talking, this RICO statute. Now, the RICO statute is if you can prove a conspiracy. So I don't know what I can't remember what the actual what it spells, but it's about a conspiracy. This is like, so, okay, think about that second Chris Nolan Batman movie, not the Ben Affleck. Don't think about those Ben Affleck movies. Anytime Ben Affleck is in a Batman suit, don't think about it. I don't have much good stuff to say about the Chris Nolan Batman movies either. And you can come at me, bro, if you want to, about that. I will talk all day long about trust fund Batman. But the RICO thing that they're talking about is what Harvey Dent used to get all those mobsters. Remember when he got all the mobsters? And they all were like, how do you plead? And they were all like, not guilty. There was like 100 fucking lawyers in the room, and they were all like, not guilty. And then it was all just madness. It was because they were able to nail him on a conspiracy, because they funneled all. It's probably the exact same reason they were able to use a RICO charge for this, is they pulled their money at one point in time. They pulled it to launder it, probably a lot like those the mafia guys in Gotham did. That was the only way, he testified, for U.S. officials to, quote, defeat narco-terrorism financing, including that running right through the heart of American financial systems, as Hezbollah was doing with the used car scheme. The nuclear deal was signed in July 2015 and formally implemented on January 17, 2016. A week later, almost 2 years after his arrest, Czech officials finally released Fayad to Lebanon in exchange for 5 Czech citizens that Hezbollah operatives had kidnapped as bargaining chips. That's fucked up. It's fucked up, bro. All right, let's wrap this. Let's wrap this son of a bitch up like a turban. Let's wrap this motherfucking thing up like a turban. I'm going to skip to the last paragraph in this third part here, just to end this. And I suggest, if you guys are interested in this, you can find the Politico article online in its entirety for free, and it's fascinating. I really suggest that everybody go and check it out. So the last article in this, and again, I just want to give a shout out and props and also credit to Politico, and the author is Josh Meyer. The whole name of the article is The Secret Backstory of How Obama Let Hezbollah Off the Hook, an ambitious U.S. task force targeting Hezbollah's billion-dollar criminal enterprise ran headlong into the White House's desire for a nuclear deal with Iran. Most of the stuff that I cut out was the inner workings of the scheme. So if you're wondering why I keep running into these in the article about car lots in Africa, the middle section that I cut most of it out, really, or I did not cut it out, I just didn't read it, really. The middle, part 2, the middle section, really dives deep into the whole scheme and how it worked. But I leave that up to you guys to research if you're interested. So here we go. We're just going to wrap this up. And like I said, thank you guys. I appreciate you, and thank you for hanging in for this last part. I love it. I love that you are hanging fucking tough. You're like the new kids on the block. And I'm going to wrap this up, and then we're going to dump right into Soda Jerk Fucking Fight, which is how I've been ending all the shows lately. So here we go. Quote, they will believe until death that we were shut down because of the Iran deal, unquote, Malt said. Quote, my gut feeling, my instinct as a guy doing this shit for 28 years, it does not say shit, it just says doing this for 28 years, is that it certainly contributed to why I got pushed aside and picked apart. There is no doubt in my mind. Thank you guys. I love you. See you next week. Bye.
When I had my first sip, and my darling whiskey had tightened up her grip, and she made me sick that night. I knew that the whiskey would take up my life. When I
inches below 5'9". And every guy here wants to take me alive, but I take a shot of whiskey and punch out their lights. The whiskey, it makes me wanna fucking fight. I fucking fight, fucking fight. The whiskey, it makes me wanna fucking fight. Not even the crack of dawn is safe. So I take a shot of whiskey and say goodnight. The whiskey, it makes me wanna fucking fight. I fucking fight.